Welcome to Conversations with Big Rich. This is an interview-style podcast. These interviewed are all involved in the off-road industry. Being involved, like all of my guests are, is a lifestyle, not just a job. I talk to past, present, and future legends, as well as business owners, employees, media, and land use warriors. Men and women who have found their way into this exciting and addictive lifestyle we call off-road. We discuss their personal history, struggles, successes, and reboots. We dive into what drives them to stay active in off-road. We all hope to shed some light on how to find a path into this world that we live and love and call off-road. This episode of Conversations with Big Rich is brought to you by the Off-Road Motorsports Hall of Fame. The mission of the Hall of Fame is to educate and inspire present and future generations of the off-road community by celebrating the achievements of those who came before. We invite you to help fulfill the mission of the Off-Road Motorsports Hall of Fame. Join, partner, or donate today. Legends live at ORMHOF.org. On this week's episode of Conversations with Big Rich, I'll be discussing life and racing with Scott Taylor. Scott is a 2022 ORMHOF inductee, a champion short course racer, manufacturer of performance competition parts, and race shop owner. Scott, it's so good to have you on the air. Let's find out more about you.
Okay, I'm glad to be here today, Rich.
So let's find out, where were you born and raised?
Well, I was born and raised in this little town out in northwest Illinois, and it's Belvedere, Illinois, very, very close. We're 12 minutes away from Rockford and about 70 miles west of Chicago. And born and raised here. It's a very quiet community, and very blessed to be in such a wonderful setting, because I can go off and do what I did, and then when I come back, I'm back in my own little protected bubble, we'll call it, but keeping a low profile. But I grew up here and built a home a one block from where I grew up, and Kelly and I and my daughter still live right here in Belvedere, Illinois.
Excellent. And I would imagine that the people that you grew up with in your youth, are there still a lot of them hanging around?
Oh yeah, I do. I'm into so many different things, and we'll get into that possibly, but snowmobile buddies and flying buddies and shooting buddies, and we've lost a few of them away, along the way. But in fact, this weekend coming up, I'm going with a friend of mine that I've snowmobiled with for 20 years. My wife and I are going up to the UP to go riding side by sides in the fall weather and the fall trees, and just get away for a few days.
Excellent. So those early years there in Illinois, you sounds like you did hunting and fishing and all that stuff. How were you as a student? Were you more interested in getting out, or were you a good student?
I was a poor student. I couldn't wait to get out of school to get home and help my dad mow the yard, or help him paint, or help him do whatever. My father worked from 7 in the morning till 5:30, the traditional hours, and I couldn't wait for him to get home, and my foot was tapping all the time in school. I got through it. I graduated from high school, but I was more interested in being home, fiddling with a go-kart or a lawnmower or who knows what. And then as I got older, in 12, 13, I was into fishing and hunting, and I just wasn't really all that keen on school. I couldn't sit still.
Understood. That's a common thread with all of us that are in this industry, as a matter of fact.
Uh-huh.
So then, the activities that you guys did, you mentioned snowmobiling and flying, and what was the earliest things that you remember doing as a family?
My folks and I and my two brother and sister, I can recall we used to do a lot of boating. On Sunday, Dad would pack up the boat and with whatever we needed to take to the lake, and we'd go and spend a Sunday. And the long drives home, which was only an hour, but then it seemed like it was all night. We used to go as a family, did a lot of boating. We went on one camping trip, and my dad didn't like it, so we didn't go back to doing that. But I would, I was even into flying model airplanes, and my dad and I used to do some of that. And I can't really think of, too many other things. I wasn't into sports. I was into anything with a gas motor on it. Anything that you could put gas in and run it, I was all in.
And you had that same drive that most of us had, taking things apart as a kid and then trying to figure out how they go back together, even if they weren't broken.
Oh yeah. I would take things apart I shouldn't take apart and figure out how it was built and try to make it faster, or make it better. But my dad was a mechanic at the Ford garage in Belvedere, and my mother was a circuit clerk of Boone County. So mom and dad were both hard workers, and my father left Manly's. I forget the years now, but he was there for 57 years. So I got to go down to Manly's, where he worked on Saturdays when he went down to either work to service his own cars or get caught up on something or whatever we did. And I used to go down with him, and I always looked forward to doing that.
Wow, that's a long career, 57 years working for a company.
Yeah, he did it a long time. And what's really cool right now is my daughter, Carly, is just 21, and she's dating a guy by the name of Max Kaler, which is her mom's maiden name is Manley, and it was Manley Motors, and her dad and his family own the dealership. So it's kind of cool that my daughter is dating and been dating this guy for about young man for about 3 years, and he's a good kid, and he's a Manley, and it's, I don't know, it's just the way the dice roll, but it's very coincidental, but I'm enjoying it.
How big is the town that you live in?
I was thinking about this the other day. I think we're like 19,000 people, something like that. 21,000 people in Belvedere.
So easy to know a lot of the people.
Yeah, although the older I get, the more and more they're not. I'm either they're going away, or I don't see as many of them as I used to. And we're all getting a little older, so we don't recognize each other right at first. But I still run into a lot of people know me yet, and I still have friends and folks that stop by and used to watch you on TV, and all the good stuff about the racing days and how you been and this and that. It turns into a social hour here out at the shop.
Perfect. That's always good to have that happen, where people know they can stop by and especially if you have the time and have a discussion.
I take the time because you got to do that. I mean, that's all part of what I am and how I enjoy my day and how I can make somebody else's day just a little better.
Excellent. And so, high school was the highest part of education. Did you do any college?
No, I did some. I'm a self-taught guy, and if I needed to learn about something, I figured it out by either books or meetings or tours. And then later on, of course, we had internet, so I started to do things with internet and things of that line. But I was always a self-taught guy. I didn't do any vocational colleges or anything, and I don't want to brag, but I'm smarter than most of these young engineers coming out of college that just don't have any practical. They'll get it, but when they come out, they just don't have the I've been there, I've seen that, I've been in that movie kind of a deal. And there's a lot to be said over self-teaching yourself as opposed to learning from a book.
Exactly, especially for somebody that has the true desire to want to better themselves and not just get by.
Oh yeah, when I did Q&As for Ford Motor Company and BF Goodrich and the vocational colleges that I used to go to, my message was always, you can do anything you want to do. If you want to do it bad enough, you'll find a way. And mom and dad didn't have a lot of money. We never went without, but I had to do everything with my own two hands. I started changing tires at 14, and then I was went to work for a Schwinn bicycle shop and a lawnmower shop, and I changed all kinds of wheels and tires and learned from that, and then went on to be a machinist at Sunstrand Aviation, and then got a lot of my machining knowledge through that, as well as 4 years of high school. I hung around the machine shops and the auto mechanic shops, and not basket weaving and sewing.
That's another common theme with a lot of us in this industry, is that we did the shop classes, and we were always looking out the window trying to get outdoors.
Yeah, and I tried to advocate deeply to the high schools and so forth when I'd speak at high schools, and tell them how important it is to keep the five things of vocational, the training, the woodworking, electronics, drafting, machine tool, and auto mechanic, and there's five. I don't remember the other one now, but anyway, I advocated for that, and they all went away. I learned from all of them. What I do today was woodworking. As I just finished that 1941 Waco aircraft. Machining, I've used it my whole life. Auto mechanics, I've used it my whole life. Electrical and wiring, I've used my whole life. We learn those basics in school, and it gives us a path to get started on. And we need to get back to that. And I advocate about that every single time I get a chance.
I agree. It was really depressing to me when they started pulling all the industrial arts classes out of the high schools. Like, exactly. It wasn't needed because we're going into the computer age. Well, somebody still has to build that stuff. Somebody still has to work on the infrastructure and build the houses and do all the things that we need.
Yep. Absolutely. Build a house, you got to know drawings, you got to know electrical and woodworking. To build a race car, you need to know electrical, you need to know auto, you need to know machining. It's all right there. It's the skills that somebody thought about and put through the high schools. And I truly believe that in my heart that's what made me the person I am, because I learned those 5 traits and I use them every single day of my life. And I advocate for that. And I hit home a lot when I do talk to folks, but unfortunately you've got the schools and, powers to be that doesn't think that that's necessary.
Right. That's why I think Mike Rowe for president, the dirty jobs guy, he's, that's all he does is advocate, learning to work with your hands.
Yep. Learn your trade. And again, passion will take you a long ways. And I had a lot of passion for racing, and and I still do, although I don't do it anymore. I still have fun with the side-by-sides and the snowmobiles and being crazy about all that kind of stuff at 68 years old. But, the bump start I got going into junior high and high school, I still have a teacher that comes here as a locksmith, and he was my auto mechanics teacher.
Wow.
And he's 83 years old, and we're still friends. And when someone else is here and he stops in, he'll say, "Yeah, that's God. He was always up to something, but he was, always full of hell, right?" But he seen something in me, and we get a chance to talk now and then. And he's kind of proud that one of his students made it as far as he did.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that. So then, those early years, you're working on everything that you can get your hands on.
Yep.
What was the first car or truck that you got to drive?
So in 1969 through 72, 3, 4, I don't remember the years, I had a VW shop. I just started fiddling the folks.
Okay.
And I'll be darned if I didn't have a little shop at my home. And I bought a home in property in 1972. So I opened up my own little shop, and believe it or not, it was 4 city lots, and it had a garage on it and a house, and the rest of it was all garden and trees. And I had a shop there for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. I fiddled with Volkswagens my whole life. And so in 1973 in my VW shop, I always bought these parts from a guy by the name of Phil Rushi. And his name of his business was Phil's Auto Tops in Evanston, Illinois. And I bought all my bearings and gaskets and pistons and cylinders and line bore equipment and all that stuff through Phil. And Phil called me one day and says, "Hey, we're having an off-road race up in Edgerton, Wisconsin." It was 1972, and it was Memorial Day weekend. He's, "Why don't you come up and watch and see what we do?" And so I showed up, and I go, "Wow, this is so much fun. It's really cool." So and he sold chassis, he sold all the race parts, and he knew what he was doing. And so I figured out a way to build a Chenis 2-seat car, and I actually raced it, I believe, that fall over in Joliet, and did horrible. Had a flat tire, just had a horrible day, and I go, what did I get myself into? But I picked myself up, went home, fixed everything, and then in the spring, raced up in Wisconsin again and did much better. And then my third race, I finished in the top 3, and I go, wow, I'm starting to get there. And by the end of that season, I was winning races and doing real well. And so 1973, around the 15th of September is when I started racing, and it was in a rail sand car that had a 40 horse in it, and one shock per wheel, and you didn't have a driving seat back then. You had a helmet and short sleeve shirts, and away you went. Raced at Lake Geneva and all around. We had got to be good friends with the Propses and the Warrens and the Leonards, and oh my God, we just had so much fun back in them days. And but that's where it got, and it was Phil Rushi that
got you started.
Was the first guy to get me going. And then his son Mike, I still am in contact with him quite a bit, and he does a lot of promoting of the race series and helps other guys out. He's a wonderful man.
It's great to see the generations, continue in the industry.
Yes, it's important that happens, and there's some folks out there that do a good job at it. Thank God.
Yeah, exactly. Got to keep this racing going.
Absolutely.
So that first Volkswagen buggy, kind of like a Class 9 car, I would thinking of the score rules, but the Sportsman 40 horse class or something. And how long did you race that?
Well, back in them days, it was called Class A, B, C, and D. And A were the 1200 cc motors and rules. And I raced that car for 2 or 3 years. And finally it was breaking up and having a lot of trouble. So I ended up with another Funko chassis in a 2-seat. And I forget what years, that was the mid 70s and early 80s. I had finally went to my first single seat car, which was also a Funko. And when I went to that car in Class 9, they called it Class 9 at the time. I was really doing well with it. I took that car to Riverside, California, and the very first race was in 78, and finished 5th against all the hot rods out in California. And then I won a lot of races back here, and then I built, in the early 80s, I built what was called a tandem, and that was my own design, kind of a side off of, I believe Funko made a tandem, and I went to Riverside and won with it twice in Class 2, which was a modified 2-seat. And
what's a,
so I was starting.
What's a, let me interject, what's a tandem?
Car, the passenger sat behind you instead of alongside of you.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yep. And if you go back through the history of the Riverside days, you'll see where I won it twice. And Brian Skipper's brother rode with me both times. And I just had a really, really good car. And I drove the wheels off of it. And it was a lot of fun to do that. And Goodrich was helping me at that time. B.F. Goodrich was our first sponsor to come on board. and was providing us with support and tires. And then shortly after that, I got into mini trucks, and then that's where my career took off. Once I got something that Ford Motor Company was interested in, and advertising and so forth, and with Goodrich, I started getting some backing, financial backing, and then I really started climbing up the ladder.
And did you race? Did you have an opportunity to race in SCORE, like the desert racing in Baja, in the buggy or truck classes?
I never went to do any desert racing in a truck. Tried to desert race a couple times in my tandem car, but it wasn't set up for it. Didn't have big enough fuel tanks, and that the desert thing was so much different than what I was used to, and I just I kept breaking the truck or the car. So I tried it, and it was too far to travel for me. It was too money wise. I didn't have that kind of money to do that, and it was just too much for me to do. So I just stayed here in the Midwest.
Okay.
Traveled to Canada, raced in Canada a lot, and Florida, and that was about as far as I could really travel away and do this.
Right. Being from the Midwest, that makes sense. That's a longer haul, especially back in those days where, fuel prices were low, but so was income, comparatively speaking.
That's right. Yes, definitely.
Everybody goes, oh, remember when it was 25 cents a gallon? Yeah, and I remember when it was, $1.50 for your an hour a wage too.
Yeah, it was all in some kind of a format of scale.
Yes. So then you got a chance to race in Canada, and that was all short course as well?
Yes, just like we do here in the Midwest. And then same as in Florida. A guy by the name of Jimmy Crowder, who's just a good friend of mine, just passed here a year ago. He had Crowder Excavating down in Florida, and we raced at his big pit that he had. They called it the Florida 400, and it was either 400 miles or 8 hours, whatever came first.
Wow.
And that was quite a race. I think I know I finished in the top 3 once, and I think I won it one year. I don't remember much about it. It was a long time ago.
And that was in one of the buggies?
Yes, it was.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
8 hours in a Class 9 buggy.
Whew. Yeah, yep. And we used to have what was called the Indian Summer Sprints about this time of year back here. We raced at Lake Geneva, and we started racing in the afternoon. And then as the day went on, we had to put lights on. And it was an 8-hour race. Whoever had the most laps and whoever was in front won the race. And I used to win that overall in the Class 9 buggy because I never had to pit for fuel. I only had to stop about every 15, 20 laps for fuel. Right. And it was a 5-mile lap, something like that. and I'd win by laps, and it was just so much fun. And cars would break, and they didn't get back out or spend too much time in the pits. And I can remember getting out of those cars, no power steering. My fingers were just wrapped around the steering wheel. I couldn't get them straight, even back when I was in the, my 20s. It was hard on you.
And they called it a sprint, and it was an 8-hour race?
Yeah, the Indian Summer Sprints is what they called it.
And it sprints is an 8-hour race. That's
yeah.
I wasn't expecting that.
No, and that today you look at it and go, what is a sprint about that? But oh my Lord, it was a lot of fun. It's what curved me from where I was and where I'm at today. That's for sure.
And what was the racing back like then? I know that off-road racing can get a little contentious, especially on a closed course, short course, where you may be rubbing tires or body work. I always equate off-road racing to circle track. Circle track, there's always fights in the pits or on in the infield or something after people have come into contact. Was there much of that back there in the Midwest racing, or
no?
Was everybody just kind of like, oh well, it happened?
Yeah, no. I mean, it really wasn't that bad. I mean, sure, we all had arguments about you hit me here and you didn't need to do it, or you ran into me there and why'd you do that? Things like that. But the track I'm referring to was at Lake Geneva, and we used to run an old railroad bed, and it was a join to a big sandy, not sandy, but a gravel pit. And we used to go up and down this big gravel hill that seemed like it was forever. And it was probably only 200 or 300 feet or 500 feet, but it was just full of washboards. I mean, you didn't have graders smoothing the track out. You didn't have them grooming jumps. And if it rained, it was just, you were full on, you had to prep for the rain and the day. And, it wasn't just wheel to wheel going round and round and round. It was straight. It was an old drag strip and stock car track that we used the whole facility, and there was a railroad bed that was adjoining. You come down that railroad bed back into the property, and there was loops they made, and it was like, I think, a 4 or 5 mile loop. And you'd disappear. It was a horrible race to watch from the grandstands because you'd just kind of through the stock car pit and out on the stock car track and down the stock car track and on the drag strip and down to the end, and then a switch back and you duck away, and then 2 minutes later you come back out, or a minute later. And it was different. It was a totally different layout back then.
Right. Okay. Makes sense. And then you got into the truck racing, Class 7?
Yep. Got into all short course, 7S, and restricted 2,500 cc pintle motors. And of course I had a Ford Ranger, and ran that for 2 or 3 years and 4 years, and did real well with it, and got some help out of Goodrich and help out of Ford. And then the sponsorship, after that, I brought it to Riverside, finished second or third, behind Scott Douglas and I think Chuck Johnson. And after that is when I met Russ Wernemont, and it was the late 80s in Crandon, and they made the journey back here with Robbie in the Venable truck. And I got to meet Russ and got teamed up with him and helped him out on the coast a few times. And then I built a Class 8 two-wheel drive truck.
Oh, cool. And you did some work with Walker Evans as well?
Yeah, I knew Walker. I got to know Walker, and we did some things together. Once we got going, we built a two-wheel drive truck and started campaigning it. And Walker came back here from California, and there was a new truck for me. And Walker showed up, and we got talking about different things. You know how you meet somebody, and I kind of liked this guy, and I kind of thought he was a pretty cool dude, and he still is. And we hit it off. We really did. When I came to California, he let me work in his shop I had troubles with a tow truck, one of my trucks that I hauled our rig out there with. And Randy and Walker said, "Come on over, you can work in our shop and get your deal taken care of and get it fixed so you can drive and get home." And so we did that, and I met him early on. Then I might have talked him into coming back to back here to Lake Geneva to race. And of course he was a lot faster than me, but I had my eyes set on somebody I had to beat. And I then got more support from Ford. They helped us with some big block engines and transmission parts, and by God, if I didn't finally beat Walker. And then I got into the Ford Rough Riders. That was Frank D'Angelo and Ford Rough Rider folks with Goodrich and Ford, and I was able to set the bar pretty high, so I was able to get put in that group of guys, and that was a real boost for me in my career. That was kind of cool.
And that was 86, 87?
Yeah, 86. Yep, right in there somewhere, 86, 87. And by then I was working with Russ. Russ was helping me a lot. I knew a lot of people in the business. I was, hand making everything of my own. And it's back to, if you want to do something bad enough, you'll find a way to do it. And I found a way to do it. And then when Ford Rough Riders came along, then I had financial backing and was able to really put a mark and hang my trophies up pretty high and pretty proud.
What kind of parts were you producing? This is from your machine shop days, but what kind of parts did you start making, and were you doing on your own?
Well, I wasn't building anything for anyone else at that time. I had quit working for everything, and for anyone. I had building our own rear end housings and front ends and spindles and A-arms and just doing everything for myself. I wasn't doing anything for anyone else.
Okay.
I was paid enough. I was paid enough to do it all on my own, and so I did everything here at the shop by myself, and with helpers, I should say, and just really didn't have to work for a living back in those days.
That's convenient.
Well, it was from 7 o'clock in the morning until midnight, building all my stuff all day long and all night, and just working like a madman all the time on things, trying to make things lighter, stronger, faster, better. Building our own shock absorbers, building everything ourselves except for transmissions and motors. And it was quite a time. It really was. I look back at it sometimes and just shake my head and wonder how the hell I did it. But I did it mostly all myself. I don't know if it's I don't get along with working people. I always expect somebody I don't expect them to pass me, but I expect them to stay alongside of me. And it's pretty hard when you're going 100 miles an hour for anybody to have that kind of will to do it for somebody else. But I had a few guys that worked for me, and they were wonderful guys. And along the line, I did take some time off to have some fun here and there, but I was pretty dedicated.
And your wife and family was understanding?
I didn't have a wife and family then.
Oh, okay.
I didn't get married until the very late, 88,
All right.
88, 89, but I'm wrong. I got married. And then we had two daughters right away. And yeah, the answer to that is yes. I was a good dad. I come home, I spent time with the girls, I spent time with my wife, and my wife is a hard worker to this day. And she understood that I had a vision, and that's how she met me, and she accepted that. And I never took advantage of it. And we're very loyal, and we just got along. To this day, I can come home at night, and I may take off and go to the airport and go flying, or I may stay home, or I may mow the yard, and whatever I do, she's fine with it. And the same goes for her. If she's got something she's going to do, she just goes and does it. So we've always had a phenomenal relationship. 0, 0, 0 jealousy, and all the trust in the world.
That's one of the things that I think makes a strong relationship is having that zero jealousy.
There's none. And she's a farm girl from Belvedere here, and I've known her brothers, and I'll be darned if we didn't meet one night out at a club, and before the night was over, we exchanged phone numbers, and we went out on some dates and thought, gee, this is going well, and I'll be darned if we didn't marry her and have some great kids with her, and she's still the idol to me.
Awesome.
She's a beautiful and inside and out.
Excellent. So then we're racing truck, and that it was a Class 7. Is that? I'm not sure where the short course now. You got the Pro 2, Pro 4. What's how is that compared?
So a Class 7 7S was a stock truck, a lot of stock parts, 2,500 cc pintle motor in the Fords, and we had the Nissans had their version of it, and so on, but in the Fords, it was mostly all Ford Rangers, and those were 7S. And then they went to they were that for a long time, and then they went to what was called a Pro Light, and that was when they ran a lot. They opened up all the suspension. You could do what there was limits, but it was like a Pro 2 spec chassis. And then short time after that, they were running really higher modified 4 cylinders. The Toyotas were real strong. The Fords were real strong. Esslinger built a lot of those engines. And then when Ricky Johnson and oh goodness, my name's Marty Reed had the series. They went to a Pro Light went to a V8 motor, a spec engine. And so that continued on, and I'm not sure where they're at now, but you had the Pro Lights, the Pro 2s, and the Pro 4s. And I got out of the 7s or the stock trucks before that because I was campaigning the 2-wheel drive Pro 2. And that was called a Class 8 at the time. And you had Class 8s and Class 4s, 4-wheel drives and 2-wheel drives. Okay. And that's kind of now they call them Pro 2s and Pro 4s and Pro Lights. And I'm not sure where the rules are at today and how they're all spelled out, but that's where we're at today, is where we're using stepping stones back a few years back and trying to get affordable race cars and race trucks and try to get on an even playing field. For a while there, it ran as much as you could throw at it and be within the only rule you had was a weight limit. And then they started, curving that down, and then went to the spec chassis, and then started getting their hands on a lot of the innovative things that Russ and I were doing. We weren't cheating, but we were building our own stuff, and we were ahead of our times with our shock absorbers and some of our weight transfers and how we did some things. And that's what made me a champion, and was Russ Wernemont and the things that we done to make it better, and all within the rules as well. Right. And Walker was right there, and the Flannerys were right there, and Jimmy Johnson come back and raced with us. Believe me, he was hard to beat, and it was some great times and great racing.
And those years of racing I still think were kind of the heydays. It was a little bit more open in the rules, it appears, and it was seeing some of the old footage, race videos and stuff. It's very entertaining.
Yeah, so it was the heydays of racing. In fact, today, before we did this interview, Jeff Dorr called me, and he was the old Class 4 guy, and he got into the Ford Rough Riders as well. And we were just talking. We talk about it every time we talk. We may only talk once every 2 months, but we always hit on it was the heydays of racing. We raced at the best times that we think happened back then, and because it's gotten complicated, it's gotten sponsor driven, it's gotten celebrity driven, it's gotten all of the above, and so it was we definitely raced at good times, that's for sure. The heydays is a very good way to say it.
And your performance competition parts, your shop, you're producing, or you started producing for others as well?
Yeah, and to this day, I still make I make motor plates and a few other things, flywheels and stuff like that. I still have the machinery, and I still have all CNC equipment, and so I build parts for other than the off-road racing industry, for other industries in Rockford, repair parts, and that's what I'm doing for a living these days. But I still have all my patterns and stuff. I make spindles and uprights and rear end snouts and motor plates and flywheels and starter adapters. Not near as many as I used to, but somebody will call and I try to keep them on hand, and I still provide when I can.
Excellent. And your motto, you can do anything you want if you want it badly enough. That's
correct.
You've pretty much used that your whole life.
I have. And believe me, there's been times it's been struggles, and but that's what makes you stronger, and that's what makes you figure out how to do it, and you become better at it instead of just having somebody hand you something, or just what do you want to say, loan it to you or give it to you. You work for it, you respect it better. It's like the kid that had to buy his own bicycle opposed to mom and dad buying it for him and handing it to him. It's back. You work for it, and you take better care of it, and you make it work for you. And been my model forever. And I think I grew up at a pretty good time.
So let's talk about what I think is one of your biggest accomplishments, at least in wins, and that is I believe it was 2002. You were the first Pro 2 to beat Pro 4s in the big all-together race, the championship race.
That's correct.
Talk about that. Correct. Talk about what led up to that, and what some of the feelings of those Pro 4 guys were.
Well, they at the end of the weekend they had the big championship race, and Board Warner was the Board Warner Cup, they called it, and it was they had the big trophy like they do at the Indy 500, and they backed the race. And one year we packed up the best we had, put the best package together. Roush Racing in Livonia, Michigan was doing our engines, and I said, we need a hot rod engine. We're going to go win this damn thing. And we got a good shot at it. And I knew Crandon like the back of my hand. And we went out. We had a good truck all weekend, won our races, and we prepped the car or truck. And we lined up, and we always got a head start because the fours would out pull you down the straightaways off the corner. And I forget how many laps it was, and Russ was on the radio, and I was out in front leading, and he says, they're not catching you, Scott. He said, just back off a little bit. He says, they're not catching you. And I think it was Greaves, or it might have been Flannery, I don't recall. Once he had one of them, they cut a tire down. I only had one guy to stay ahead of, and they were coming, but I was able to outrun them down the straightaway, but they were killing me on the corners. And on a big track like that, it really paid off to have long straightaways that you're running 110, 115 into turn one. And I didn't lift. I mean, I just threw that thing sideways every time down turn one, and did a big drift all the way through and up and around, and never downshifted till I got into the gravel pit corner. Clicked the second off that corner and third, and I seen the checkered flag. I'll be damned if we didn't win it. And we had a hell of a night that night. We had one crazy party up in the barn, but we made history.
Yeah, you did. And any of those guys in the Pro 4s, were they any hard feelings?
No. We were all professional enough, and of course they were all at the party, and the other two-wheel drive guys, and they knew it was coming sooner or later. And it was a big celebration, and I still have a poster. I'm looking in my office right now. I still have a big poster in here of the first race I ever won. It was about 30 pounds ago, in about 50 less wrinkles, but it was quite a night, and we had a heck of a party on it, and I still hold my head high on that race. That's for sure.
Absolutely, like you said, you made history.
Yep, and So, and then I think in the fall of that year, it seems to me that I won the Governor's Cup as well. Um, so I won the Board Warner twice and the the Governor's Cup once, and it was just one of those years I just couldn't do anything wrong.
That's great. That's great. And what is in the future for Scott?
Well, I retired in 2000. I started racing in 1973, and my last race was in 2013, and I've been away from it now 10 years. And then I was inducted into the Hall of Fame, and I told Frank and the rest of those guys, I said, man, this is actually at the induction. I got up there and I had heard already 6 wonderful speeches from my peers, and I had to get up there and speak. I said, man, I don't know where to start or where to stop. I said, this is like an old girlfriend calling you up after 10 years and wanting to start dating again. And I looked over at my wife and said, sorry, Kelly. And everybody just started laughing. They thought that was so funny. And but I'm manufacturing aircraft parts now. I just finished a UPS 7 Waco that I'm flying. It took 3 years to restore that, and it's a open cockpit biplane, and it's really a good big piece of history that I put together, and I'm enjoying that, and just doing what I want to do anymore. I still work way too hard, but one of these days I'll slow down, but not yet.
And that ORMHOF night, your induction, like you said, it was a pretty good sized class that got inducted that year. And what was that feeling besides like the old girlfriend calling after 10 years? What was the party like after that?
Oh, it was pretty intense. It was really kind of crazy. When we got word of it, we had a big party at the airport of the induction, and my wife said, hey, we're going out to Sean's hangar, and we're just going to hang out for the night and have a few drinks and this and that. Well, little be known that it was announced on the internet that night, and she had everybody from the airport there, and I'm friends with everybody at the airport. I'm the guy out there, the go-to guy for this and that, and so many of my friends were there, and we had a heck of a party, and a lot of food, a lot of friends, and it was a heck of a celebration for me getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. And there was 3 couples from the airport, the owner of the airport, Steve and Tina, my flying mentor, Steve Zorline, and his wife, Patty, and Jim and Val from Belize. And they all flew out and sat with us during the induction.
Oh, that's great.
It was really a fantastic weekend. And to top it off, it was the end of October, and the next day after the induction was Kelly's and my anniversary, and because we were married on the 31st of October, so we had a phenomenal.
Excellent.
Yep. So it all come together. I'm a very blessed person. I'm very fortunate to have the friends I have, and be able to do what I do, and it all comes from the 5 shop classes in high school.
And I hope that you get a chance to talk about that often at schools or with people that could make a difference.
I do. I talk about it all the time. Whenever I get a chance, I talk about it. I talk about it all the time, and I get so many. Like my old school teacher definitely agrees with me, Bill Robinson, and I just have. I've just been blessed. I really have been. And I again, you can do whatever you want to do if you want to do it bad enough, and you'll find a way. And I've been applauded on that many times, and I hope if I just have one person follow my lead on that, and do what I say, I've succeeded. And I'm hoping there's been plenty more than just one.
I'm sure there has. Well, Scott, I want to say thank you very much for spending some time and talking about your life and and what drove you to your passions. And I really appreciate getting to know you. And I hope to see you at least once a year for quite a few years in the coming up here at ORMHOF at the galas. And again, I really want to appreciate for you taking the time to have this conversation with me.
Well, it's definitely worth it. And you'll see me out at the Hall of Fame with, watching the other inductees go through what I went through. It's really a very humbling experience. And it's good to see people achieve. There's so much negative in this world right now that I don't want to get into politics in the least, but I don't know where it's going or why it's going the way it is. But hopefully God will figure a way out to get us turned around and get us going in the right direction again.
Absolutely. I agree. Hopefully. Scott, thank you very much. You have a great rest of your day, and for sure we'll see you at the next ORMHOF induction. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Rich. It's been a pleasure to talk with you.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. So long for now.
Well, that's another episode of Conversations with Big Rich. I'd like to thank you all for listening. If you could do us a favor and leave us a review on any podcast service that you happen to be listening on, or send us an email or a text message or a Facebook message, and let me know any ideas that you have, or if there's anybody that you have that you think would be a great guest, please forward the contact information to me so that we can try to get them on. And always remember, live life to the fullest. Enjoying life is a must. Follow your dreams and live life with all the gusto you can. Thank you.